I'm Jim Collison, and live from Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 2, recorded on May 5th, 2016. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes, one theme at a time, and today's theme is discipline. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you right below the main video window here on the live page, and a great way. We'd love to have you log in. Bottom left-hand corner, it says log in. Click that button. Choose the guest option. Put your name where it says guest. Take the numbers out. Put your name in there. Hit submit. It'll log in. Don't need to create an account. Nobody will email you. It's just the best way to get in to the chat room. We do take your live questions during the program, and so a great way to interact with us is in that chat room. You can also pop that chat room out, by the way. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, I think it's up here, over there, you would get the opportunity to pop that out. That way you can have us on one side and the chat room on the other, so a great way to get that done as well. If you're listening to the recorded version, or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, contact us. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com, all one word, for your coaching resources and StrengthsFinder training needs. You can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows over at coaching.gallup.com. Micah, I should also say on the Coach's blog, our EP10 product is out there. We don't talk about that very often, but if our EP10 is Entrepreneurial Profile 10, and all the information for that is on the Coach's, is out at the Gallup Strengths Center site. So if you're thinking, or you work with entrepreneurs, or you're working in the startup space, you might want to have a look at that, gallupstrengthscenter.com. Micah Librant is our host today. She's one of my favorite learning and development consultants here with Gallup. And Micah, I'm super excited about seeing you come July, because you're going to get to come here for the Clifton Strengths Summit. By the way, we just did a full video on that yesterday, and so if you want to know what's going on with the Clifton Strengths Summit, we'll be putting that blog out on Friday, and so check the Coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. But Micah, great to have you, and welcome to another Theme Thursday.
Thanks, Jim. Best part of my whole week. Happy to be here.
Likewise, likewise. Well, we have a great topic today in discipline, and it's 34 for me.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it's all the way at the bottom. I'll check my app, because I do that. I do that every week. We have an Android and iPhone app that's available for you. A lot of people can't remember often their top 5, and so it's an awesome opportunity. A free app in either one of the Android or iPhone stores, and so you're like, I wonder, because a lot of people say that to me all the time. Like, they're like, hey, where is that? And they always go, and so if you download the app, and I'll click My Strengths, and it just shows. There's my top 5. Now let's see where I'm at. All 34. Oh, no, I lied. It's 30. It's still pretty low. Look at all that. Look at all that purple on 30. You
got me beat.
Yeah, discipline, consistency, restorative, deliberative, and focus there. But let's talk a little bit about discipline today.
Yeah, so I had to look on my app as well. 32 for me. So again, just because something is low doesn't mean you don't do that thing that it suggests you do. StrengthsFinder is more about how you do it. So I can be very disciplined, but I won't do it in the same way that someone with discipline would do it. So what our themes tell us is how we operate. And today we get to talk about the how that somebody with high discipline would go about their life. It's an executing theme, so it is about getting stuff done. Should we dive in? If you were able to download the companion guide, it's a great way to follow along what we're talking about here. I'll just give you a quick overview before we dive into that. I think discipline is all about people who engage with and love creating order. So it's about, the best visual that I have for discipline comes from thinking about old school Nintendo and Mario. So you would have, as you were playing this video game, you would have lots of options to move, but it was very ordered. You couldn't go in between very easily. It's almost one-dimensional in the way that your little guy in the video game could run. And I think about when Mario went between worlds or between levels, it was through tubes, and they looked like, Mario was a plumber, so it looked like plumbing tubes. And these tubes were the only way that you could get from one place to another. You can't create something new. You follow the structure. When we deal with discipline, and when I work with people who have high discipline, it's almost as if they can create very very, very strong avenues, grooves that they can create, order that they can create, structure that they can create, so that you don't have to worry about all the options out there. You can follow what works. You can follow, I mean, think about those giant green tubes, and you can just work through that groove. So people with high discipline, it's about getting stuff done. It's about productivity, but it's about creating a structure and an order in order to get to where you're going.
Oh, and how do we define that then?
So we say people exceptionally talented in the discipline theme enjoy routine and structure. Their world is best described by the order that they create.
Do you think that's important that they create just that word? Because oftentimes, right, we often think they live in ordered processes, but this is an influencing thing. I mean, we are creating. I think I used that wrong. Is it executing or influencing?
It's an executing.
It's
theme.
executing.
What they're doing is creating order, and it's not like, I think strategic very often gets confused sometimes with discipline, because strategic's thinking about possibilities, thinking about how to work, thinking about patterns, picking up on those things. So it's a little bit more strategic, happens in your head, and it's about picking up on what's external. Discipline is a very internal way of creating some order so that you can get to where you're going. Again, the so that you can move forward piece helps us understand that it is an executing theme.
Yeah, let's talk about its power and edge.
Yeah, so what's good about it? The top side of that companion guide, we discuss power and edge. What's the value of discipline? We say here, people with strong discipline talents love things that are organized and orderly. They meet deadlines. That you could end right there. They meet deadlines. That's a huge value. But we continue. They can efficiently manage limited resources. That part, I think, helps us understand discipline versus maybe some other themes. It's not about dreaming up other resources that you could need. It really is about using what's there, using what's real, what's pragmatic, what is available in the very best way, and creating order and structure in order to make the most of the resources that we have. They bring a high level of organization, order, and stability to the projects and groups with which they work.
Yeah, and very valuable to me, by the way. I love working with disciplined people. It's not one of those things you would think. Sometimes it's a grind for us that lack the discipline, because we're held accountable. But as I've gotten older, I've really learned to appreciate that talent, and I kind of crave it when I'm in groups. I begin to gravitate towards those with discipline because I need that. I need that order and that structure that they create. I crave their influence at times, their ability to go out and make that order happen in people. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I let them make that order in me. And so it's, for me, instead of fighting it, which I did when I was younger, maybe in my raw state in a lot of my themes, I've begun to crave it. So let's talk a little bit about raw versus mature.
Sure. So raw versus mature is one way to talk about the developmental process of these themes. Not necessarily good and bad, but thinking about how could you take potential and grow it into performance. So raw discipline looks like, or sounds like, I need order. Sort of that feeling out of control when chaos is there, because discipline has a radar into what is structured, what is clean, what is where is everything in place. Again, back to, are we within our grooves? Are we working in our channels? And when that isn't that way, it can sort of throw people with high discipline off. So I need order is sort of the raw state. Then the mature state is I create order. So being able to prioritize and being able to take those opportunities to see, other people might crave this, like you were describing, Jim, and being bold enough and practiced enough to be able to offer ways that things could be more structured, could be cleaner, could be more efficient.
Hopefully most people and we encourage you to do this, every Sunday night here in the United States, we post a GWSW kind of summary, and it has season 1 in it. The video for season 1, the audio as well. We interviewed Ryan Wolf, who's one of our corporate trainers here. And Micah, Ryan brings this to my life, right, in its mature state. He has created order for me, and you'd think, wow, that's a perfect trait for a coach. But Ryan really is, for me, I've worked with him over the last 8 years or so. In him, not just in my workout, right, but in other areas of my life of kind of working or building that order into me. It's been really, really helpful to have that when I think about a best friend at work, Ryan is one of those, and so he's done that for me very, very well.
And I when we say corporate trainer, we mean he's a physical, like
He's a fitness
a
trainer.
workout trainer, a fitness
Yeah.
trainer. He
Yeah.
also works quite a bit, really helping to develop and lead our well-being initiative. I think that brings me back to what you mentioned before of when you crave discipline from somebody who has it, realizing that they get just as much out of a charge out of giving that to you, out of creating that for you. I sometimes relate that to people with high restorative who love fixing problems. Sometimes I'll hold back. I won't ask for it because I'll think, oh gosh, I don't want to put one more thing on their plate. I don't want to bother them. But if you deal with somebody with high restorative and you bring them a problem, it's sometimes the best part of their day. If you deal with somebody with high discipline and you say, I need some help figuring out how to efficiently get where I'm going, or I need you to help me map out what's the most structured way to go from my current state to a goal, that can be an excellent gift for somebody with high discipline. So if you've got it, think about ways that you can offer it to others. And if you're partnering, dealing, loving somebody who has it, look for opportunities that you can open up their huge talent for structure by maybe giving some opportunities to help you with it.
Yeah, it's a real gift for sure. What else do we think about raw and mature?
Yeah, I've got two more. I think raw discipline is about the process. Mature is about the performance. If you listen back to season 1 and hear Ryan Wolf talk about when he was young, he used to spend hours organizing his collections. Not necessarily a productive use of his time, but if you can think about where he is now, he focuses and prioritizes on how do I get over the joy in organizing and get on with it. Think about how do I create some structure and then use that structure. There is that temptation because I think, can you imagine somebody with discipline going to the Container Store, which is a place where it's a store full of organizational have tools basically for your house. It would be, I think, heaven for somebody with high discipline because it's all about how do we feed that joy that they get out of creating structure and using limited resources in the greatest way. If you spend your whole day shopping around and just getting really excited about that, you miss the opportunity to apply that toward performance.
Yeah, I think, and sometimes a ranger can look like discipline from that organization standpoint because, or ranger number one for me, I love to reorganize things, but I can't keep them. Like once they're reorganized, I'm bored. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's move on from that. Where discipline reorganizes and keeps it that way, right? From that standpoint. So it's interesting. I love to do that as well. I just sometimes need that help and the discipline to keep it going forward. What else? When we think about raw and
the
mature?
last one I have, I think raw discipline is sort of set in its ways and can be inflexible. That might be a difference between a ranger, as just like you mentioned, and discipline. A ranger is sometimes real time. It's more about juggling. It's about taking what I'm given and reorganizing it and making chaos work. Discipline is about creating opportunities where you don't ever get to chaos. So it's creating order so that you avoid the need to juggle. I think it's a little bit more preemptive than a ranger is, where a ranger really excels sometimes in the moment. Because of that, raw discipline can look like, guys, I already sorted this out, and can have a difficult time when life gets messy. Mature discipline on that side becomes more anticipatory, thinking about, perhaps there are 3 different set orders or set structures that we can work with, and being willing to say, I know and I've practiced and I've proven and I feel comfortable with perhaps 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different structures that we can follow so that they're prepared to adapt should they need to.
Yeah, no, really good. I some great points in there, Micah. By the way, that's our number one. When we get feedback from you guys, and it's great to send us in feedback. We love that. This raw versus mature section is where we get the most.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people in the feedback that I get just say, man, they learn a lot in there, so we appreciate that. Amy also gave us a little bit of feedback, Micah, and I think we've mentioned this before. Maybe we haven't been consistent with it, but she says, I really love the concept of here's how to give a gift to someone with this theme, right? Here's how to use that. Oftentimes, and I like that idea of when I allow someone to work in their area, that theme, that area of strengths for them, it's a gift, right? It's help me do this, and I'm going to allow you to use your strengths, the things you're best at, to get that done.
I think both the raw and mature and that question of how do you honor somebody's somebody's talent are great examples that when you take Clifton StrengthsFinder, it's only that identification process. There's a lot more of the journey that really needs to happen, and that's why we need great coaches who can really take it from that identification through development and awareness and all the way to performance. When we talk about raw versus mature, that doesn't come from reading through necessarily all of our scientific reports. That's a conceptual framework. So it's, again, it highlights the importance of being conceptual about it, sitting with these themes, loving them, thinking about them, considering them, and I think that helps us. I love the question of a gift, and I always like to frame it when I'm asking people about their own themes in coaching sessions. I'll ask them, who honors your specific theme and how do they do it? Because I think one of the greatest awareness nuggets that you can have around your own talents are, what are the habits, structures, ways of working, relationships in which your unique themes thrive the best. And then I think we all have an obligation to learn those, to review them, to really understand what they are, and then to find a really great way to ask for them. Strengths isn't about needing to treat everybody the same way. It's about treating everybody exactly how they uniquely need to be treated. And we can't get there unless we can voice that ourselves.
Yeah. No, it's good. We've got some complementary themes that we want to think about. Let's roll through those two.
Yeah, so let's think about what themes in other people might make great partners for people with high discipline. The first one I think of is positivity. So can you imagine someone with high discipline who's got their eye on the prize, the most efficient way to get there, creating some structure? What a partner with positivity would bring to them is some excitement about the structure. That ability to influence people, get them on board. I think about positivity as being a really great cheerleader or a really enthusiastic coach who can say and add maybe some passion, some emotion to the dispassionate execution drive of discipline, help people see that there is something to love in the structure that they're creating. The other complementary theme I came up with here is futuristic. So if you had a partner who could think a little bit more, again, discipline's about doing. It's about considering and then doing. That futuristic comes from the strategic thinking side of things. So being able to stretch and think about, I could be a great partner if I had futuristic. I could be a great partner for someone with discipline, helping them think about what kind of structure are you creating now that's going to take us 5 years into the future? What kind of staying power or lasting ability does your use of what might be limited resources now, how can that expand upon itself? How can that have some real saliency looking into the future? So some pretty cool partnerships I think we could imagine there.
Yeah, one of the other ones, we didn't have this, so I'll go off the rails here a little bit, but ideation is another one of those that's worked well for me, working with folks with discipline. They oftentimes are maybe stuck in the box and will come and say, hey, I need some ideas. They know that I'll generate a ton of ideas. I need some ideas that'll help me think outside the box. And so turn on ideation, and I'll just start ripping out ideas. Typically, they'll get about 5, and then they're like, I'm done.
Too much. Okay. That's enough.
That's enough. And it's good to just shut it off at that point. But that's another, I think, and again, they can all be complementary, right? This isn't, we're not saying it's only these 2 or 3, but just some ideas from us on some of these, especially for me where that's worked really well. For my discipline friends, they often come to me and say, hey, Jim, can you give me some ideas that might help me get beyond, where we're at today?
Right. That's a fantastic segue into our next piece here on the companion guide is likely and unlikely pairs. This is looking at statistically what's the most likely to show up in your top 5 with discipline. Let's start with unlikely because it actually is ideation. It is the least likely to show up with discipline as someone's top 5. So what a perfect partnership to really go and seek that out. I think you hit on it a little bit, Jim, when you talked about thinking outside the box, which is ideation, versus creating the box, which would be discipline. I think it comes back to discipline's love for understanding what we have and how we use what we have. Ideation can take stock of what we have and think about how do we totally, blow up what the ideas that we had before, and look for what we don't have, look for what isn't there, embrace the abstract. So it makes, I think, logical sense why they would be sort of at opposite ends of the frequency in terms of where they show up for people. If you had them both, and you absolutely could, you're probably a very creative architect, being able to think perhaps a really big picture first, but then filter it through a lens of discipline to think about what are we going to get done.
Yeah. What about likely?
Yeah, the most likely pair to show up with discipline is responsibility. Part of that is a numbers game. Responsibility is pretty likely in itself. So, of course, it's the most likely pair for several of these. Responsibility is about following through on what you promise to others. I think about responsibility being a pretty external theme. It is because I said something to someone else, I owe them the follow through. So, think about external follow through plus the internal structure of discipline. Discipline can create structure for other people, but mostly it's about how do I create structure to get something done. I had one of my very best friends, the maid of honor in my wedding, has discipline and responsibility, and we were roommates in college. And I remember every night before we went to bed, she would write a list of what she had to do the next day. And I'm not kidding you, it was to 5-minute intervals. And a lot of it was about how does she follow through on what she's promised other people. I think that's the flavor of what was she doing was very external. The way she was doing it, the 5-minute intervals, the clarity, the fact that she had this ability to do it every night and had a process she went through, that predictability piece of it, I think that's the discipline, but really beautiful when they work together.
Yeah, that is indeed. What other kind of observations, Micah, as we kind of wrap up this section, do you have?
Yeah, I think people with high discipline can create structure not just for other people, but for entire teams. So, if you've got high discipline, and it's not a super common theme, in fact, it used to be our least common theme. It is since bumped up a little bit, but it's still in like the low 30s for how often it shows up in people's top 5. So, we need you to raise your hand and offer that discipline sometimes. You can probably see ways and sense even ways that things could be more efficiently organized, that structure could be created before anybody else even knows that we need them. So listen to that voice and realize that other people aren't seeing it. So 2 things that I would advise there. The first is raise your hand and offer it. And the second is be patient when other people don't see it. Not everyone else lives in the same kind of orderliness that you do. Not everybody else thrives in the same kind of predictability. So if you can get out in front of that and introduce it as a value you bring before it introduces you as a need you have, I think it can create some really great stability for people. I imagine leaders with high discipline being compassionate by being predictable.
Yeah, I love that word predictability. I think in a leader that is super key. It's honestly, it's one of the areas I struggle with as a leader because I'm not predictable, right? Mm-hmm. Everything I have is very adaptable, very movable. We think about a ranger and activator and those pieces for me that wants to ideation constantly be changing things, and yet in this discipline, that gift that we give, that they give back to them, is this predictability. And so if you're a manager and you've got discipline, man, use that thing. Don't use it as a blunt force object, by the way. That's, I think, when we think about a way not to use discipline is beating people over. Why can't you be more disciplined? But creating those predictable structures that people can work within, because most of us really want that, right? We want to come to work. We want to know what our job is. We want to know what's expected of us. We want to know those things are solid. And so someone with discipline can really provide that environment.
This morning I was talking to a good friend of mine here at Gallup about discipline. She said, "Hey, I can't wait for Theme Thursday." And I said, "Well, do you have any, pearls of wisdom around this?" And she said, "I think discipline might be the most envied theme not to have as yourself, but to have partners who have it."
Yeah, I said that a lot today, so maybe that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We want people who've got that. I think there's another piece of it that can look a little bit like you're considering things that other people aren't, and sometimes that can throw people off, and that is that people with high discipline have a great understanding of the time it takes to move through a structure. So they're attracted to deadlines, to timelines, to framework that isn't just about moving efficiently, but it's moving efficiently toward that goal. And that gives them, I think, an element of time and an understanding of time and energy use that not everybody else has. So think about, your role, if you've got high discipline, might be to help the rest of us consider how much time is it actually going to take to move through the process that we're moving through? What do we need to expect in the future? That's where it can look a little bit more strategic, a little bit more futuristic, but it is mostly about how it has the most accurate and efficient way going to work out that we can get to where we're going.
Yeah. Stacy says in chat, she says, I see this creating structure at home with my kids, and my wife, Sarah, has both responsibility and discipline, her top five. She absolutely did this for our teenagers, and it was so, I mean, it was so good for them, right? Because if it was up to me, it would have been a disaster. Like every day, it would have been different. And she created these systems, these repeatable systems that the kids felt great comfort in. And high school is a difficult time for kids, right? I mean, here in the United States, it can be a really hard time. And that predictability she built at home, as we think about, the book Strength-Based Parenting, using those disciplines in her parenting, or using that discipline in her parenting, I see it now. My kids are all adults for the most part. And I see that gift she gave to them, that structure is so important. So, yes, Stacy, absolutely. It doesn't just have to be a work deal. This can be an incredible talent to use at home and to give your kids this predictability.
I feel like I should hire somebody to give me some of that at home.
Well, sometimes, sometimes we if we don't, we always say if you don't have it, hire it out, and so finding that's important. Let's think about theme dynamics here. We've got a couple that we want to go through. Well, Micah, while I'm setting this up, if you would talk a little bit about what this app is and why we use it.
Yeah, so our good friend Kurt Liesfeld, who we miss dearly, created the thought that theme pairs are very powerful. He probably didn't create the thought, but he created a lot of tools around this idea of theme dynamics, looking at how does one theme change or get filtered by or bounce off of or play with another theme when you start to look at having both of them in your top five. And he wrote a few sentences, less than 140 characters, about every possible theme pair. And that is available in the ebook now that we're going to pull up here. So it's called Expanding Your Strengths. And when you purchase this ebook on Amazon, you also get access to the app that Jim's going to pull up here for us. And what you can do through this app is you can, from a drop-down menu, pair up any possible combination of two themes. And that'll bring up first what Kurt wrote about them. So what would it sound like if I were a human being who had both of these? And then you'll also got a little bit more bullet point information about each of the two themes there. So on our Facebook page, we voted on which theme dynamics we want to go through.
Let me remind them really quick. So a lot of people have asked, well, why don't you print a physical book of this? And we don't. It's only available online, only through Kindle, and at this point, only through Amazon. By the way, you don't have to have a Kindle to get this. There's Kindle software you can load on Mac or PC if you want to do it that way. So you can download it. We have tons of multimedia resources in the book, and it just wouldn't make sense on printed paper. And so this app is, when you buy the book, you get a code that enables this app. And so many of you have asked, how do I get access to it? That's how you do it. Today it's available in US, UK, and Canada. We are expanding to international markets coming soon here. So if it's not available in your market, hang tight. We will get there as well. Let's talk about discipline and responsibility.
Right, so discipline plus responsibility. You love to use calendars and spreadsheets to make sure that you accomplish your plans and meet your commitments to others. So again, two executing themes put together. I think what responsibility adds to discipline is a little bit more of a loyalist sort of feeling. If you think about both of these together, I actually wrote this down, what might they sound like together? I think about it as being a structured servant.
Yeah, it's a good, and again, I mentioned my wife has both of these. Guess what lives in our house, right? Big calendars.
Calendars?
Big calendars. And when the calendars get behind, things from the family standpoint to go a little bit sideways. We depend on all those. We depend on all those pieces.
It's discipline has this grounding in my order and my structure. And everyone I've ever worked with discipline has either a calendar or a giant whiteboard or some way to externalize the almost Excel spreadsheet that their brain must look like. There's some sort of way to get that out of their brain and into what they're doing. So a great example with the calendars.
Yeah, and not a robot, right? This isn't the discipline of robotness. This is the discipline of defining and putting together these actions that need to be done. This is an interesting one to me. Discipline and harmony.
Yeah, discipline and harmony. Harmony is a relationship building theme. It's all about finding areas of agreement. There is, this one makes sense to me because harmony likes areas of agreement so that we can move forward. It uses the radar that it has, almost like a litmus test for emotion, in order to find out what those are. So it is a relationship building theme, but there is an element of efficient forward progress to harmony. So when you think about blending that with discipline, Kurt says you manage the important details of your life and the emotional variables of the group you are in to foster efficiency. If you were to boil it down to just a few words, I think it's creating order in order to relieve tension.
Yeah, no, I like it. And again, going back to that theme of a great manager, these are when we think about the discipline and this harmony piece together with groups and order, man, what a great combo.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at belief, discipline, and belief.
So again, two executing themes here. Belief is about having a core set of values that you act upon. When you think about it together, the organized and efficient use of your time and money enables you to make generous contributions of both to serve others. So it adds, I think, a direction for the discipline. It certainly, I think the values conversation that comes in with belief would certainly color what discipline is aiming toward. So again, discipline's very aware of goals, and I think it would be probably some values-based goals. Or if you were to boil it down to a nice little alliteration, a passionate planner.
Very good. And now my favorite, discipline and woo.
Discipline and woo. Woo is an influencing theme all about quickly building relationships with other people. When you think about those together, it sounds like this. Your talent for building a broad and growing social network never diminishes your ability to increase order and reduce chaos. I think about it as being an influential organizer.
Yeah, and I have theme envy here for sure because I'm so high in woo, but because I don't have that discipline behind the scenes. I want it sometimes. I wish, as I'm creating big lists of things or I'm working with big groups of things, I think about our high school program here in Omaha. We have a high school internship program. And as we've begun to reach out into the community, I really need to build those lists of instructors and schools and influencers that every year I can send that out to. But because I don't have that, oftentimes those lists get lost, or I don't think to go back and capture that person in, and I really need to. Now, thank goodness I have Jody, and Jody comes behind me oftentimes and collects those up, and then just provides them for me and lists later, like, here they are, Jim. This was, we got this to you. But when I think of these two together, what a powerful combination.
I have a friend who has both of these, and she can make me feel good about order. And I am usually pretty terrified about doing things, and I know I might be the most disorganized person on the planet, but it's like there's this welcoming hospitality to the structure that she creates.
Yeah, it's awesome when they come together. Next week, we're going to cover empathy, and let's talk a little bit about here.
Awesome. So preview for next week, what we're going to do with empathy. It's a relationship building theme. It's probably the most talked about theme. When I go through somebody's full 34, it's the one that comes up the most regardless of where it is in your profile. It is the one that people want to talk about because I think of the word, of the label. We're told from a very young age that we need to be empathetic. And it's probably, I spend quite a bit of time helping people understand this doesn't tell you what you do, but again, how you do it. When we define empathy through CliftonStrengths Finder, we define it as a sixth sense, that ability to feel what other people are feeling. People with high empathy can pick up on if there's been an argument in the room even before they were there. They can pick up on if somebody is feeling especially good or especially low. They feel it with them. When you blend that with discipline, it sounds like this. You plan your work because when you do, you eliminate the negative emotions that are often associated with chaos or confusion. Can you hear that others focus around chaos and confusion, awareness of how the ripple effect emotionally that has on other people? I wrote down a rehearsed confidant. I think there's something about discipline that is that predictive space. It's also because it's rehearsed. So it's different than consistency. It's not just about being fair and measured and accurate. It's about really figuring things out ahead of time and creating some structure, building it. If you've got a way that works to alleviate negative emotion, then you're probably tying that negativity toward chaos because discipline doesn't like mess. But you're also able to sort of preempt anything that might create chaos emotionally. So a pretty cool combination.
Yeah, great superpower. I love all these combos, by the way. This has become my favorite part of what we do is to dig into each one of these. I'm not sure, even though I have access to the app, I'm not sure I would necessarily sit down and dig into each one the way we do, and so I really appreciate the time that we spend together. Would encourage you to do as well. Once you have the app available, you can get access to it from anywhere. Just go expandingyourstrengths.com, and you can put the code in, and you get access to this. And if you're working with folks, even for yourself, you can dive right into the app, bring these up. There's a lot of resources available for you there. Micah, as we think about empathy, do you think in the Western culture is biased against empathy in some ways? In other words, it's not cool to be empathetic because we're kind of hard charging. You know, yesterday we were talking about, Roy Spence is speaking at the Clifton Strengths Summit, and Roy was the one who came up with that slogan, don't mess with Texas. We've got this kind of tough guy image, especially here in the United States. Do you think there can be a cultural negative bias some ways against some of the themes? And what are your thoughts, if that exists, what are your thoughts about combating that? Let's just say empathy or discipline are number one or two. And I think Kim in the chat was saying that he has both. What do you think about that?
I think with all 34, it's really important to be able to voice the value of these themes. Sometimes it can be important to do that a little bit more on purpose, a little bit more louder. And if it is something that's misunderstood, then it's probably all the more important that we're able to say, here's what's valuable about it, what makes it a strength. Not only if it's yours. I think in the process of becoming a great coach and using this tool to help people move from potential to performance, to move through vulnerability, you really need to understand not just what is each theme, how's it defined, but then ask yourself, why is that a strength? And come back to the research of Clifton Strengths Finder and realize that we didn't just describe all the possible patterns of thought, feeling, and emotion that people could have. What we did was we started by looking at people who were successful, and then we worked backwards and thought about, okay, what kinds of patterns of behavior do they have? So empathy and discipline and 32 others have led someone to be successful in a very black and white, pragmatic way. So understand that, if you're feeling a little bit like, gosh, my empathy is soft, that it might just be that way for you right now, but it has, the power to be incredibly, incredibly strong. And that's where I think it's important to maybe just pull yourself back and say, what do I imagine when I imagine talent? If I were to ask myself who is talented, what kinds of figures or actual people or even imaginary people would come up, and we used to actually ask that question, a Gallup poll around that question annually. Who is talented, and who do people think of? They typically think of athletes, of musicians or artists or politicians, or every time I ask that in a sixth grade classroom lately, it's Beyonce. And I like to bring people back to that question on purpose and remind them that there is Beyonce level talent in your themes. There is, fill the remove Beyonce,
fill in
and
the
whatever,
blank.
you fill in the blank there with whoever you think of when you think about talent. That's the kind of potential that exists there. With empathy, if you want to talk specifically about it, I think, gosh, what a superpower to be able to come in and feel what other people are feeling. That's probably something we'd actually wish for if we had some real superpowers. Maybe there's a bias, maybe it's Western culture, maybe it's also just because we're achiever is the most common theme, and so maybe it's just an achievement bias. I actually find that quite a bit when I'm coaching people one-on-one, especially the higher that they get through an organization. They'll find that they are on lots of teams that are very action biased, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes that can feel like empathy might get in the way of action. If you could find ways to tie how much quicker you could get to your goals if you could feel what everyone else was feeling, I think we can start to imagine how powerful that could be.
Yeah, just a reminder, we do post season 1 video and audio to our Facebook page and to the blog. So if you go to coaching.gallup.com, each Sunday afternoon U.S. time, so Monday morning in Asia and late night in Europe, if you want to go out there, we post those videos so you don't have to go track them down. You can find them, and you can actually review before we come here on Theme Thursday. You can do a review of what we said in Season 1 and bring it to Season 2. We always appreciate you guys that come out live. If you've never caught us live, we're always here on Thursdays, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'd love to have you come out and join us in the chat room. We've got some folks that come out each and every week, and it's super encouraging for us to hear what you have to say in the chat room. And so we appreciate what you guys do, the comments that you have. We know we're encouraging you because you're sending us emails. I get emails all the time from you guys. I get a couple a week that just says, hey, I really appreciate it. Different people all the time, and so we always appreciate your feedback. I try to share that. If you send it to me, I try to share that with Micah and vice versa as well, but it's just a lot of fun. I think we're about halfway through the year. Yeah. And just a reminder, we'll be wrapping up the rest of them. The companion guides are out there at the coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. We put those out each and every week, and they're available for you out there as well. We mentioned the CliftonStrengths Summit that is coming up, and we just did a whole webcast on it yesterday, May 4th. So if you're listening to this in a time-shifted manner, head over to CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. All the information is out there, including the breakouts and the speakers, although some of the breakouts are still coming, so hang tight. We would love to have you join Micah and I in Omaha, July 18th, 19th, and 20th. We'll both be here, and we'd love to see you. Love to have you out here, and I'll be available the entire week to meet and greet from that perspective. But we'd love to have you come out again. CliftonStrengthsSummit.com to get that done. Micah, I sure can't wait to have you in Omaha. It's gonna be pretty awesome. Anything you want to say as we kind of put a wrap on discipline today?
So I think the beauty of discipline is it might be in how rare and beautiful it is. It's sort of like something you don't come across all the time, but when you do, it certainly stands out. I think it's about there's an urgency to it, and that urgency is a gift that you can give to other people. So don't apologize if you need to check in on how your structure and your order is doing over and over again. The last thing that it really came up, it was something on a greeting card or a coffee mug that I had seen that just kept coming back to me as I was thinking about discipline, and it's this quote from Marianne Rademacher, and it says, "Begin each day as if it were on purpose." I think that's a beautiful way to talk about the purposefulness that discipline brings. What a cool theme.
No, great theme indeed. Well, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. Just head to GallupStrengthCenter.com. Send us your questions. If you're listening offline and you got some questions for us, we'll take those as well. You can send us to an email, coaching@gallup.com. That email actually works for a lot of different things, so if you want to send those in. You can catch the recorded audio and video versions both. We have everything available on the Coaches blog. Listen to this list for a second. Talk about discipline, right? Facebook group, YouTube page, our iTunes and RSS feeds. We now have a new Google is doing something new on Android called Google Play Music, and if you jump in that app, you can actually get podcasts in there now. And guess what? Theme Thursday is part of that.
We're everywhere.
That's true. We are everywhere. The links for that, and I made the easy links. If you actually go to coaching.gallup.com on your mobile device and you go to the subscribe page, there's big buttons you can just click and it'll automatically subscribe you in either iTunes or in that Google Play Music. You don't have to download any app. They're already on your phone. You can do this. You can recapture that time in a plane, on a train, in a car, any of those times, walking the dog, on the treadmill. I get that all the time. I listen to you on the treadmill. That's awesome. Recapture that time. All the links are available for that, including the companion guides we talked about on the Coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, and 24,000 of you have at StrengthsFinder. Super easy. Find us on Twitter. Stephanie Helgado does a great job. She works out of our Washington, D.C. office. She does a great job of tweeting strengths-based stuff. And so if you want to keep up with what we're doing on StrengthsFinder, just head out to Twitter and look at StrengthsFinder. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, you can see a list of all our courses. Super easy site to remember, courses.gallup.com. Not very difficult to get to in all our courses, including if you're coming during the summit, we have some courses available only during the summit, or I shouldn't say only, but during the summit. A 15% discount is applied to those. So if you were thinking about taking one of our courses and you want to get the discount, And I should remind you, too, we have special discounts for educators. So if you're an educator in there and you want to take some of our courses and you didn't know that, we have some special discounts just for you. Head out courses.gallup.com. If you have questions about the courses, then use that email, the coaching@gallup.com as well. And we'd love to see you at one of our courses. If you're interested in discovering all 34 of your talent themes, I showed you in the app, all 34 available. That is an upgrade that's available at Gallup Strength Center. Just head over to gallupstrengthcenter.com and look for the all 34 option. If you found this useful, and why wouldn't you? We enjoy doing it and hope you do as well. We'd ask that you share it and let others know as well. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.